Imagine stepping out to grab your morning coffee and finding a fluorescent orange notice slapped on your door, accusing your camping van of aesthetic sabotage in your own driveway. That's how my week kicked off at Willow Creek Residences, a suburban maze where the grass must be exactly 5 centimeters tall and mailboxes can't lean to the right, literally or figuratively. I'm Ethan Brooks, a cybersecurity specialist with a passion for off-grid adventures. My van, Nomad One, wasn't just a weekend getaway, it was an FBI mobile command center. But Diane Foster, the self-proclaimed empress of the Homeowners Association, didn't know that. She thought she was policing a hippie van. What she got was a federal showdown, a neighbor uprising, and a viral clash with a rogue raccoon. Buckle up. This is the story of how a clipboard tyrant met her match. It all started with that garish orange paper flapping like a bad omen on my door. It was impossible to ignore, the kind of color that screams, "You're in trouble," before you even read the first line. Diane Foster, the relentless HOA president of Willow Creek Residences, had penned a notice in Times New Roman, size 12, with the precision of someone drafting wills for wealthy families. The letter branded my Nomad One, my 1998 van with faded blue paint, and a history longer than my own, an unauthorized recreational vehicle that was destroying the neighborhood's visual tranquility. Visual tranquility? Willow Creek was a cul-de-sac of beige bungalows, all identical, as if a lazy architect had hit copy-paste on the design. The biggest thrill around here was Mr. Thompson's dachshund, Bandit, stealing delivery packages and leaving a trail of chewed cardboard. Last month, he made off with a pack of diapers, and Mr. Thompson spent 2 hours yelling, "Bandit, you thief," while the dog ran circles on the lawn. Diane, a 52-year-old former lawyer with a bob haircut that looked ruler straight and a stare that said, "I've seen your kind in court," had ruled Willow Creek for 6 years with an iron fist and a red pen always at the ready. Her silver minivan, parked in the prime spot by the gate, sported a Willow Creek Pride sticker, so bright it outshone headlights. Her yard, flawless, with shrubs trimmed into cubes and a security camera that swiveled slowly, like a cyclops. Eye-tracking every move. I swear I saw that camera wink at me once. Diane wasn't just the HOA president. She was the judge, jury, and if you crossed her enough, the executioner. The morning after the orange paper, I decided to confront her. I grabbed the HOA bylaws, a 47-page booklet that probably no one but Diane ever read, and flagged the section allowing visitor vehicles for up to 12 days. My Nomad One, with its worn tires and faded live-free bumper sticker, still had a week of immunity. I knocked on her door at 9:03 a.m., a strategic time, early enough to seem serious, but late enough for her to have had her unsweetened black coffee. Diane opened the door with a smile so sharp it could cut glass. She adjusted her thin-framed glasses, the kind she wore like a crown, and said, "Ethan, what a surprise. Here to pay the van fine? Actually, I came to show you this." I opened the bylaws to the marked page and pointed to the paragraph with the confidence of someone who'd just watched a YouTube negotiation tutorial. 12 days, Diane, my van's legal. She didn't even glance at the paper. She just crossed her arms, her silver bracelet jangling like a warning bell, and gave a smirk that was half pity, half poison. "Rules change, Ethan. Keep up." Then she shut the door in my face with the softness of someone locking a safe. That was her first mistake, underestimating me and my van. Diane wasn't just an HOA president. She was a suburban autocrat who wielded a laminator like a scepter and ruled Willow Creek with the precision of a 5-star general. Her empire was built on petty fines, each drafted with the glee of someone savoring a fine wine. $80 for unapproved porch light wattage. Mrs. Delgado paid that after her 60-watt bulb was deemed too aggressive. $120 for excessively festive garden gnomes. Poor Mr. Gupta had to hide his Christmas gnomes after Diane declared their exaggerated smiles violated the neighborhood's aesthetic. And Mr. Thompson, he got a $150 fine for flagpole shadow misalignment because his American flag's shadow was 4 degrees off center at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. The man spent a week with a ruler and protractor, trying to prove the sun was wrong, not him. Diane's house, a beige bunker with windows so clean they reflected her own arrogance, was the heart of her reign. Security floodlights, the kind that feel like they're frisking you as you pass, snapped on automatically, lighting up her lawn like a runway. Neighbors whispered about her infraction book, a black spiral notebook she carried like a battle plan, jotting down every misstep, with a Mont Blanc pen that probably cost more than Mr. Thompson's car. Rumor had it she kept it in a locked drawer next to a collection of rulers and a laser thermometer for measuring sidewalk temperatures. Above 32 degrees neglect, she'd once declared. My van, Nomad One, legally parked with a 12-day permit, became Diane's obsession. She claimed its matte black paint, rooftop solar panels, and faded Live Free sticker were psychologically disturbing to residents. Psychologically disturbing? The only disturbing thing in Willow Creek was the sound of her minivan, revving at 6 a.m. to patrol the neighborhood. I laughed off the first notice, thinking it was just another of her whims. But then the next morning, I found a second notice taped to Nomad One's windshield, written in bold red letters, "Vehicle subject to towing in 48 hours." It wasn't about the van's appearance, it was about power. Diane couldn't stand that I, a 29-year-old outsider with a van full of stories and zero patience for bureaucracy, was challenging her authority. What Diane didn't know, and could never know, was that Nomad One wasn't just my ticket to mountain trails or weekend escapes to deserted beaches. By day it looked like a backpacker's van, with its matte black paint, crooked solar panels, and a Live Free sticker that screamed aimless adventurer. But by night, Nomad One transformed into an FBI mobile command center, packed with tech that would make any spy movie look amateur. Encrypted satellite links, sparrow-sized surveillance drones, and a monitoring system that could trace an email to the most obscure server on the planet, all hidden behind blackout curtains and false panels in its wood-lined interior. I wasn't just a 29-year-old guy with an odd attachment to an old van. I was Ethan Caldwell, a cybersecurity specialist for federal contracts, and Nomad One was a classified asset in a high-stakes operation against a cybercrime network operating just miles away. The van's rugged, off-grid look, a perfect disguise. The FBI had instructed me to keep it parked at Willow Creek between missions to avoid raising suspicion. Nothing says I'm harmless louder than a van with mud stains and a rusty bike rack. While neighbors saw a stubborn backpacker, I was monitoring data streams that could take down a criminal organization responsible for stealing millions in cryptocurrency. Diane, with her infraction book and orange notices, had no idea she was trying to tow a federal asset in disguise. To her, Nomad One was an affront to the neighborhood's visual tranquility. To me, it was the key to wrapping up a 2-year investigation. I couldn't tell her that, of course. Secrecy was part of the game. One wrong word, and the operation could collapse like a house of cards. So while Diane plotted her next move, probably drafting a third notice with her Mont Blanc pen, I started playing my own game. Every notice she issued, every thinly veiled threat in her emails, every doorbell camera clip showing her minivan patrolling the street at 6 a.m. It all went into a secure server inside Nomad One. I wasn't just collecting evidence for an HOA dispute. I was building a dossier for a federal case. If Diane wanted war, she was about to find out she'd picked a fight with the wrong guy and the wrong van. Diane's crusade didn't stop with me. She was on a mission to purify Willow Creek, and Nomad One was just the first target in her sights. She fired off mass emails to all residents with the subject line in all caps, "Protecting Willow Creek's serenity." In the body, she called my van a step toward anarchy, warning that unauthorized recreational vehicles would open the floodgates to makeshift communes, unlicensed bonfires, and widespread aesthetic chaos. It was as if she pictured barefoot hippies pitching tents on the lawn and roasting marshmallows on the sidewalk. The neighbors, who usually ignored her emails, started getting jittery. The word anarchy has a special way of making homeowners double-check their door locks. Diane didn't stop there. Her terror campaign hit other targets with the precision of a guided missile. Rachel Nguyen, the kindergarten teacher who hosted community potlucks with homemade quiches and lemonade, was fined $100 for unregulated food sharing, after Diane claimed her gingerbread cookies lacked sanitary certification. Rachel, who wore sunflower earrings and had a laugh that could calm even Bandit, was so stunned she cancelled the next potluck. Mr. Thompson, the flag-waving patriot, got a $90 violation for excessive sprinkler overspray because his water wet 2 centimeters of the public sidewalk. He spent the next morning with a hose in hand, grumbling that this woman wants to control the rain. Diane's real army, though, was her knitting group, dubbed the Purity Patrol by the neighbors. Made up of 4 women with permed hair and glasses dangling from gold chains, they patrolled Willow Creek with notebooks identical to Diane's infraction book, jotting down every slip-up, a poorly parked bike, a non-compliant flower pot, a bark from Bandit after 10 p.m. The leader, Mrs. Marjorie, a former accountant with a stare that could freeze hot coffee, was spotted snapping photos of Nomad One with her iPhone, likely for Diane's dossier. Together they spread fear, whispering about fines like they were apocalyptic prophecies. The peak of the crusade came with the announcement of an emergency meeting, grandly titled Operation Neighborhood Sanctity, a name so pompous it sounded like it came from a war manual. The invitation, printed on cream paper in Times New Roman, promised a critical discussion on preserving community harmony and, of course, free donuts. Diane knew how to draw a crowd. On the night of the meeting, the community room, a space smelling of disinfectant and filled with folding chairs, was packed. Half the attendees were there for the donuts, which formed a wobbly stack next to a lukewarm coffee urn. The other half, including Mrs. Delgado with her ever-present iced tea, seemed genuinely worried about Diane's anarchy. When the lights dimmed, Diane ascended to the podium. Yes, she insisted on calling the coffee table a podium, and opened a PowerPoint that looked like it was made by an intern with unlimited clip art access. The main slide, in bold, red letters declared Nomad One, public enemy number 1. A grainy photo of my van, taken by Marjorie, appeared alongside phrases like aesthetic hazard and threat to order. The audience murmured. Mr. Thompson, chewing a cinnamon donut, whispered to Rachel, "That van's ugly, but anarchy, that's a stretch." Even the dog, who somehow sneaked into the room, barked in protest before being ushered out. As Diane ranted, I started plotting my move. She wanted to play dirty. I could play smarter. Diane escalated her attack with the fury of someone who just invented a new fine. This time, she didn't settle for hysterical emails or garish orange notices. She sent laminated letters, hand-delivered, by Mrs. Marjorie of the Purity Patrol, demanding I remove Nomad One within 72 hours. Each letter cited a mysterious towing clause that, according to Diane, justified hauling my van like an abandoned shopping cart. I scoured the HOA bylaws, a 47-page tome I now knew better than my own resume, and, surprise, no such clause existed. It was as if Diane had dreamed it up during one of her red wine and brie nights, jotting it down on a napkin next to her laminator. I decided to confront her at the HOA meeting, armed with my printed bylaws, pages flagged with post-its like a TV show lawyer. The community room, with its grey carpet and stale coffee smell, was full of restless neighbors, some clutching half-eaten donuts, others checking their phones to avoid Diane's glare. When my turn to speak came, I held up the bylaws and pointed to page 19, section 3.1, which allowed temporary vehicles for up to 12 days. "It's right here in black and white," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the weight of Diane's stare. She didn't flinch. With a rehearsed wave of her hand, she dismissed my argument. "That was informally updated, Ethan. You should keep up with the minutes." Informally? That was code for I make the rules when I feel like it. The Purity Patrol nodded in unison, like a chorus of taxidermied owls, while Mrs. Delgado in the back whispered to Rachel, "This woman thinks she's the Queen of England." But Diane didn't stop with me. Her fine campaign turned into a suburban witch hunt, targeting anyone who dared breathe outside Willow Creek standards. Rachel Nguyen, the sunflower earringed kindergarten teacher, got a notice for excessive Christmas wreath diameter. Apparently, her 45-centimeter wreath was visually oppressive to the neighborhood. Rachel, still reeling from the cookie fine, stashed the wreath in her attic with a defeated sigh. A teenager, Lucas, who spent afternoons doing skate tricks on the street, was fined for sidewalk wear from excessive friction. The notice, taped to his parents' garage, included a photo from Diane's camera, with the skateboard circled in red like evidence of a heinous crime. Mr. Thompson, already exhausted from adjusting his flag's shadow, muttered to me as we left the meeting, "If she fines Bandit for barking, I'll tow her minivan myself." Diane wasn't targeting infractions, she was targeting people. Every fine was a message, bend or I'll break you. But she didn't count on me documenting everything, every laminated letter, every all-caps email, every sticky notice slapped on Nomad One. It all went straight to the dossier I was building on the van's secure server. My doorbell camera, synced with Nomad One's motion sensors, caught Marjorie's late-night visits taping notices at 3 a.m. with the precision of a knitting ninja. One sensor, hidden in the solar panel, even recorded Diane measuring the distance between my van and the parking line with a retractable tape measure, as if she were mapping a war crime. "Keep digging, Diane," I thought, as I archived the video. On a grey Tuesday, Diane Foster crossed a line that even she, with all her laminator and spiral notebook glory, couldn't undo. While I was at work, monitoring data streams in a makeshift office 20 minutes from Willow Creek, an unmarked tow truck rolled into the neighborhood like a shark in calm waters. Diane, armed with a stack of glossy forms and a smile like she'd just won a chess match, convinced the driver that Nomad One was abandoned property. She must have pointed to the matte black paint and crooked solar panels, spinning a tale of an irresponsible backpacker, defying the neighborhood's serenity. What she didn't know, and could never have imagined, was that Nomad One wasn't just any van. It was a federal asset, equipped with GPS trackers, silent alarms, and remote locks I could activate with a tap on my phone. At 2:37 p.m., my phone buzzed with a notification that sent my heart racing. "Mobile asset violation detected. Coordinates Willow Lane, 200 meters. The Nomad One security system, designed to flag even a suspicious breeze, was screaming. I dropped my laptop, grabbed the keys to my hatchback, and drove like my life depended on it. Because, in a way, it did. The FBI operation, which needed the van in the neighborhood for another 48 hours to intercept critical data from a cybercrime network, couldn't be compromised by an HOA president with delusions of grandeur. I reached Willow Creek in record time, my tires squealing around. The Willow Lane curve. There was Nomad One being dragged by a rusty tow truck, its rear wheels lifted like a captured animal. Diane marched behind, pristine in her navy blazer, brandishing an orange violation sticker like a samurai sword. The Purity Patrol, led by Marjorie, watched from the sidewalk, clutching their notebooks and murmuring approvals. Neighbors peeked through curtains, Mrs. Delgado with her iced tea, Rachel with a shocked expression, even Bandit, Mr. Thompson's dachshund, barking frantically. From a nearby yard, the air smelled of hot asphalt and tension. I parked on the curb with a jolt, jumped out of the car and ran to Diane, the HOA bylaws still in my backpack. Useless now. "What do you think you're doing?" I asked, my voice louder than intended. She adjusted her thin-framed glasses, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. "You were warned, Ethan," she said, slapping the sticker on Nomad One's windshield with theatrical flair. "Abandoned property, clause 9.2. The tow is just the beginning." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. My phone was already in my hand, the FBI's secure app open on a screen Diane would never see. With 2 taps, I triggered a field alert, a protocol reserved for emergencies threatening federal assets. As Diane lectured the tow truck driver about community harmony, a low rumble echoed down the street. 2 black SUVs with tinted windows and generic plates pulled up beside Nomad One, boxing in the tow truck like predators circling prey. The doors opened, and 2 agents stepped out, both in dark suits and sunglasses that screamed, "Don't ask questions." The first, a man with short hair and a faint scar on his temple, held an FBI badge that gleamed in the weak sunlight. "Where's the vehicle?" he asked, his voice calm but heavy enough to make the tow driver drop his clipboard. Diane, for the first time, lost her composure. Her eyes widened and she stammered, "This is a private community. "You have no jurisdiction here." The agent didn't blink. He raised the badge higher, letting it hang like a guillotine. "Ma'am, you just interfered with federal property. Care to explain now or at the regional office?" The silence that followed was deafening. The Purity Patrol stopped scribbling, their notebooks dangling in their hands. Diane went pale as her pristine minivan, the shine of her Willow Creek Pride sticker now a cruel irony against the backdrop of her defeat. "Federal property," she mumbled, her voice quivering as if she'd swallowed an ice cube. The agent, with the posture of someone who'd dealt with far scarier criminals than suburban HOA presidents, gave her no room for theatrics. "That van," he said, pointing to Nomad One with its matte black paint and crooked solar panels, "is an FBI mobile command center. You attempted to tow it during an active operation. This isn't an HOA fine, ma'am. It's a violation of federal protocols." The tow driver, a burly guy in an oil-stained shirt, didn't wait for the speech to end. He unhooked Nomad One's cables like they were a ticking bomb, muttered, "I'm out," and bolted to his truck's cab, leaving a cloud of dust and a screeching tire on Willow Lane. Diane, alone on the sidewalk, still clutched her laminated forms, now crumpled like her composure. "I was just enforcing aesthetic standards," she tried to explain, her voice jumping an octave, like a kid caught stealing cookies. The second agent, a woman with a ponytail so tight it seemed to defy gravity, cut her off with a look that could melt steel. "You compromised national security, Ms. Foster. That's serious. I suggest you put those papers away and cooperate." The neighborhood, which had been watching in silence, erupted in murmurs. Mrs. Delgado, standing on her porch with her iced tea, let the glass slip, staining her floral blouse as she whispered, "Holy Mother of God," to no one in particular. Rachel Nguyen, hiding behind a tree, was filming everything with her phone, probably already sending it to the WhatsApp group titled Willow Creek Drama. Mr. Thompson, holding Bandit in his arms, let out a laugh so loud the dachshund barked in solidarity. Even Lucas, the skateboarding teen, stopped at the corner, snapping photos with a grin that said, "This is going viral." Diane, the untouchable queen of the HOA, was crumbling before an audience she'd trained to fear her fines. She tried to keep up the facade, adjusting her thin-framed glasses and lifting her chin, but her eyes betrayed panic. Without another word, she spun on her heels and marched to her house, the click of her shoes echoing on the quiet street. The blinds of her beige bunker snapped shut with a clack, like curtains falling after a disastrous act. 3 days after her public humiliation on Willow Lane, Diane Foster didn't back down. She doubled down with the ferocity of someone who'd swapped red wine for triple-shot espresso. Instead of licking her wounds, she called a community integrity forum, announced in neon green flyers that invaded mailboxes like clearance sale ads. The title in bold capitals was "Suburban Infiltration, Know the Signs and the Cover Star." A grainy photo of Nomad One, with its matte black paint and solar panels circled in red and labeled Hub of Suspicious Activity. Diane had turned my van, a federal asset disguised as a backpacker relic, into the villain of a conspiracy theory worthy of a midnight podcast. The forum, held in the community room with its eternal disinfectant smell, was a spectacle of paranoia. Diane, dressed in a blazer that screamed, "I'm a serious professional," wielded a red laser pointer to highlight slides in a PowerPoint that made her previous one look restrained. "Notice how the streetlights have flickered since the van arrived?" she said, pointing to a blurry photo of a lamppost. "Coincidence? I doubt it." The audience, 6 elderly residents, including Mrs. Marjorie of the Purity Patrol, and a 12-year-old kid only there for the free donuts, didn't know whether to laugh or nod. One man dozed in the back row, while another scribbled something, probably a grocery list. But Diane was unstoppable. She projected a copy of my LinkedIn profile, where my cybersecurity specialist title was highlighted in yellow. "Cybersecurity?" she asked, with a smirk, like she'd cracked a global secret. "That's code for spy." Rachel Nguyen, who attended the forum out of curiosity and loyalty to the neighborhood drama, filled me in afterward, barely holding back laughter. Apparently, Diane went so far as to whisper to Marjorie, hand cupped over her mouth like a soap opera villain, "He's probably bugging our smart TVs." Rachel, unable to contain herself, shot back loud enough for the room to hear, "Diane, you use a flip phone. Who's bugging that?" The donut kid cackled, and even the dozing old man woke up, confused. Diane adjusted her thin-framed glasses, shot Rachel a withering glare and pressed on, unruffled, as if truth were just an inconvenience. But Diane's paranoia didn't stop at speeches. She turned Willow Creek into a surveillance state worthy of a low-budget thriller. She installed 3 extra cameras in her yard, all pointed at my house, their lenses glinting like the eyes of a nocturnal predator. She formed the Willow Creek Watchdogs, a trio of gullible neighbors: Mr. Harold, a retiree who believed in chemtrails, Mrs. Beatrice, who collected cat figurines, and Mr. Thompson himself, who joined out of fear of more flag fines. Diane equipped them with new notebooks and a mission: monitor anomalies like strange lights or suspicious movements near Nomad One. To top it off, she bought night vision goggles on eBay and a fake compliance officer badge which she pinned to her blazer like a sheriff's star. Mrs. Delgado, spying from her porch, dubbed the group the Insomnia Squad. One night around 11 p.m., I found a letter taped to my door written on Willow Creek letterhead. The title, in all caps, was "Cease Neighborhood Espionage." In the text, Diane accused me of using Nomad One to undermine suburban decency and interfere with community values. She cited reports of flickering lights from the van, likely the LEDs on my monitors, and demanded I remove the vehicle within 24 hours. Her emails, now arriving hourly, had subjects like "Your lawn, our rules, and we're watching." One included a nighttime photo of Nomad One, captioned, "Unauthorized activities in progress." It was official. Diane had lost her last thread of sanity. While she built her castle of conspiracies, I worked in the shadows, turning her every move into ammunition. Diane's reign began to crack. Her absurd fines, like Mr. Thompson's for excessive flag fluttering, infuriated the neighborhood. Rachel, fed up with fines for her potlucks, started rallying neighbors in secret. Mr. Thompson, who discovered Diane was falsifying meeting minutes, collected evidence. When Diane proposed cameras on public sidewalks to protect property lines, it was the final straw. Neighbors approached me asking how they could help. They didn't know the van was FBI, but they knew Diane was a tyrant. We created a WhatsApp group called Free Willow, where we swapped Diane memes and planned the counteroffensive. The rebellion was brewing, and Diane had no idea. The turning point came at the Willow Creek Annual Fair, an event usually centered on homemade pies, carved pumpkins, and Mr. Thompson trying to sell his homemade apple moonshine. Diane, desperate to reclaim her prestige after the tow truck fiasco, declared herself decorum coordinator. Wearing a satin sash that read "Community Guardian" and clutching her laminated clipboard like a shield, she patrolled the park with the energy of a general on campaign. Nothing escaped her gaze. She fined a kid for excessive glitter on a carved pumpkin, scolded Rachel for asymmetrical picnic chair placement, and even tried to measure a balloon's diameter with a retractable tape measure. Neighbors rolled their eyes, but no one expected what came next. In the mid-afternoon, a rogue raccoon, nicknamed Bandit Blitz by the neighborhood kids, stormed the fair like a furry hurricane, with gleaming eyes and a boldness that Bandit, Mr. Thompson's dachshund could only envy. The raccoon toppled a cupcake table and snatched a cornbread loaf before setting its sights on Diane. She, brandishing her clipboard, tried to realign the animal, shouting, "Unauthorized fauna, this violates Section 12.4. Bandit Blitz, sensing her arrogance, bared its teeth, let out a screech that sounded like a challenge, and chased her. Diane, in panic, ran across the park, her low heels pounding the grass, her guardian sash flapping like a torn cape. The clipboard fell, smashing a prize pumpkin, and Diane screamed, "Someone call animal control!" as the raccoon pursued her to a defunct carousel. The scene was captured by dozens of phones, with Lucas, the skateboarder, narrating live like it was a sports event. And there goes Diane, juked by Bandit Blitz. The video, titled "Diane vs. Bandit: The Fall," was posted to the neighborhood WhatsApp group and, within hours, went viral on X, racking up 2.5 million views in 48 hours. The fair crowd cheered the raccoon, which escaped with a muffin in its mouth while Diane, hair disheveled and sash dangling, bolted to her minivan and slammed the door. The hashtag Bandit Blitz became Willow Creek's unofficial anthem, and T-shirts with Guardian of Defeat started circulating, courtesy of Lucas and his home printer. But public humiliation didn't stop Diane. It only made her more dangerous. Back in her beige bunker, with blinds shut like shields, she launched a final gambit. An HOA reform that amended the bylaws to retroactively ban all recreational vehicles and raised fees by 20% for enhanced security. The emails resumed, with subjects like "for a pure Willow Creek" and attachments of updated minutes no one recalled voting on. Diane thought she could regain control with her laminator and a new compliance officer badge. But Willow Creek had changed. The raccoon didn't just knock over her clipboard, it knocked over the fear that propped up her reign. The neighbors, now united by the viral video and their outrage over the fines, decided to strike back. Rachel Nguyen, once the organizer of community potlucks, revealed her past as an accountant and led an audit of the HOA's funds. Sitting in Mrs. Delgado's dining room with a stack of receipts and a mug of iced tea, she uncovered the unthinkable. Diane had siphoned off $4,000 for personal expenses, including extra security cameras, night vision goggles, and consulting fees paid to her cousin, a supposed suburban aesthetics expert living 3 states away. Rachel's report, printed on plain paper to avoid comparisons with Diane's laminator, circulated the neighborhood like a revolutionary manifesto. That same week, the rebellion culminated in an emergency vote in the community room. The space, once dominated by Diane's PowerPoint, now buzzed with the energy of a mutiny. Mrs. Delgado presented the report, Rachel detailed the embezzlement, and Mr. Thompson, with Bandit barking in his lap, shouted, "No more fines for flag shadows." Even Lucas, representing the teens, took the floor to say, nobody can stand her cameras anymore. With 87% of the vote, Diane was ousted as HOA president, and the Purity Patrol, led by Marjorie, disbanded when she announced she'd rather focus on knitting. Diane, present at the vote, tried to protest but was booed out, leaving behind a forgotten spiral notebook on the table. While the neighborhood celebrated, my behind-the-scenes work sealed Diane's fate. The FBI, alerted by the dossier I'd been building for weeks, opened a formal investigation for interference with a federal operation. Nomad One, with its advanced sensors, had detected Diane's attempts to jam its encrypted signals, likely using a cheap signal jammer bought online, which she tested during her nighttime patrols. The dossier, delivered to the agents on an encrypted USB drive, included footage from her cameras, hysterical emails, falsified meeting minutes, and even the suburban infiltration flyer. A formal subpoena arrived at Diane's house, charging her with unauthorized access to sensitive systems and obstruction of a federal operation. The agent who delivered it, the same one with the scar on his temple, reported that Diane tried to argue brandishing her fake badge. He simply said, "Ma'am, save it for the courtroom." In a final act of desperation, Diane stood on her porch the next night, lit by her own security floodlights, and gave a speech to no one. "I'm a digital patriot," she shouted, clutching a megaphone that shook in her hands. Protecting Willow Creek from spies and subversive vans. A neighbor, probably Lucas, yelled from the street, "It's just Wi-Fi delirium, Diane." The crowd laughed, Bandit barked, and even Mrs. Delgado, watching from her porch, raised her iced tea in an ironic toast. Diane, legally and socially silenced, shut her blinds for the last time. With Diane Foster dethroned, Willow Creek bloomed like a garden finally touched by sunlight after years of shade. Rachel Nguyen, with her sunflower earrings and a laugh that still calmed even Bandit, took over as interim HOA president, and soon after permanent by unanimous acclaim. Her first meeting as leader wasn't in the community room with its grey carpet and lukewarm coffee, but in Mrs. Delgado's backyard, fueled by pepperoni pizza, homemade lemonade, and laughter that echoed down the street. The HOA bylaws, that 47-page tome Diane wielded as a weapon, were rewritten in one night with colored pens and post-its. Absurd rules like lawns must reflect seasonal patriotism, or wreaths limited to 40 centimeters, were struck out to cheers. In their place came simple guidelines: be kind to your neighbors, and care for the neighborhood like you care for your home. Fines, once slapped on doors with orange stickers, turned into friendly handwritten notes from Rachel. "Hey, your lawn could use a trim. Want to grab coffee and chat?" The neighborhood didn't just change, it came alive. Mrs. Delgado started sharing cuttings from her rose bushes, teaching Lucas, the skateboarder, how to prune without destroying everything. Mr. Thompson, freed from his flag shadow obsession, opened a tool bank in his garage where neighbors borrowed drills and lawnmowers, leaving thank-you notes, and sometimes a jar of homemade jam. Rachel revived the community potlucks, now free from fines for uncertified cookies, and Mrs. Gupta brought her famous curry, which even Bandit tried to steal. The neighborhood kids, led by the donut kid from Diane's forum, started a storytelling club, gathering in the park to invent legends about Bandit Blitz, the raccoon that toppled a tyrant. Nomad One, my van with matte black paint and a faded Live Free sticker, became more than a vehicle. It became a landmark. Rachel, in a gesture blending gratitude and humor, organized an impromptu street ceremony where a wooden sign was fixed to the visitor parking spot. Willows, guardian from van to victory. Nomad One, now parked in my driveway, was more than a command center or an adventure van. It was the heart of a suburban revolution. Sometimes I'd open the back door, turn on the LED lights, and let the neighborhood kids peek inside, awestruck by the monitors that, to them, looked straight out of a spy movie. "Are you like a superhero?" asked a girl with pigtails, clutching a Bandit Blitz keychain. I smiled. "Nah, just a guy with a van and good neighbors."